Hello everybody and welcome to this video. It's another one in the series on Jane Eyre. Please do subscribe to the channel. Pick up Mr. Bruff's Guide to Jane Eyre for £3.99 at mrbruff.com and on Amazon. Written by Kerry Lewis. It's a fantastic ebook and it really will help you with your studies. So today I want to talk to you about the different settings in the novel. As you know, the novel Jane Eyre is structured in a series of episodes based on different places, and each place or setting symbolises a new phase in Jane's life. There are 5 main settings I want to talk to you about in this video. The first is Gateshead. So Gateshead symbolises the beginning of Jane's life. It's the gateway from which she leaves her family and heads off to her future. And by the end of the Gateshead chapters, we see that the next stage in her development is to learn to control her emotions. Lowood is called this because it's literally built in a low valley besides a wood. Now, symbolically, it represents a low point in Jane's life. Like a person in a wood, she is confined and surrounded by circumstances that she cannot control. She learns to control her emotions, but eventually becomes restless, wanting to experience the wider world. And this takes us to Thornfield Hall, which is full of difficulties and trials like a field full of thorns. Here, Jane struggles with her jealousy for Blanche Ingram and is tempted to become Mr. Rochester's mistress. There's also the mystery of the strange laugh in the middle of the night, the enigmatic Grace Poole, who apparently sets bed curtains on fire, and an increasing sense of threat from the strange woman who tears Jane's wedding veil in half. The Field of Thorns also has biblical connotations, creating the impression that Mr. Rochester will have to reap the consequences of what he has sown. Moor House is named after the moor upon which it was built. The vast open space of the moor symbolises the space that Jane needs to heal. It also represents her metaphorically wandering in the desert like Jesus when he was tempted by the devil. Now, when Jane is in the wilderness of the moors, this symbolises her spiritual difficulties, her physical difficulties, and her lack of direction in life. Moor House is also called Marsh End, which signifies the end of Jane's struggles through difficult times, and this might be a play on words. At Marsh End, Jane ends her march. Now, before Jane arrives at Moor House, the coach drops her off at Whitcross crossroads, and this symbolises that she's at a crossroads in her life and that she needs to make decisions. Whitcross also breaks down to Whitecross, connoting that God will comfort Jane, and it might also foreshadow Jane unknowingly following the path along the moors to the house of a man of God, St. John, associated with white imagery, snow, ice, avalanche, marble, which are the same colour as the cross, signifying that their meeting is preordained. Then we have Ferndean, which suggests ferns which grow in woods, and this emphasises the isolation of the manor house, which is described with imagery of death, illness and decay. It's buried in a wood in an insalubrious, which means run down, state. The location is so detrimental to the health that earlier in the novel Mr. Rochester tells Jane he would not even house Bertha there, and it's therefore a place where Mr. Rochester goes to die. Ferndean might also symbolise a magical place for the couple. Just like the hidden castle in the fairy tale Sleeping Beauty, it's not easy to find. The entrance is concealed in the dense summer foliage, and Jane first sees Mr. Rochester in the twilight, a time associated with the supernatural, because it's between day and night. And this all adds together to suggest that the supernatural world, represented by Jane, and the human world, represented by Mr. Rochester, are coming together. The fairy tale roles are reversed, with Jane rescuing Mr. Rochester from his living death and despair. They now have the quiet island away from others that Mr. Rochester wanted in chapter 19, where Jane can help him remove his hideous recollections of the human world. Finally, ferns suggest abundance, growth and fertility, foreshadowing Jane and Mr. Rochester's marriage and children. A dean is also the head of the chapter of a cathedral, so this adds to the marriage imagery. I want to finish by just talking about setting and contrast. Setting is often used in the novel to enhance contrasts. So, for example, in chapter 36, Jane catches the same coach at Whitcross that she arrived in, and this encourages the reader to reflect on the change in her circumstances. She's now rich and has family, while before she was desolate and hopeless and objectless. The use of 3 adjectives and the repetition of "and" slows the description for the reader and emphasises her change in fortune. Similarly, in chapter 36, when Jane is returning to Thornfield, she sees the fields through which she had previously hurried, blind, deaf, distracted when she fled Thornfield. The triplet of adverbs suggest an assault on her senses, indicating that she was mad with grief. Now, in her hurry to return to Thornfield, she states how fast I walked, how I ran sometimes, and these exclamatory sentences emphasise her joy and hopes, heightening the contrast between the past and the present. There's more in the ebook, guys. Do pick up a copy, subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.